अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशेः यस्योर्मे मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं भ्रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि अंतर्यश्च बहिर्विदुदतिमिरं ज्योतिर्मयं शाश्वतं स्थानं प्राप्य विराजते विनमताम् अज्ञानमुन्मूलयन् पश्यन् विश्वम् अपीतम् उल्लसति यो विश्वस्य पारे परः तस्मै श्रीरमणाय लोकगुरवे शोकस्य हन्त्रे नमः। Upadesa Saram, as we have been seeing, was initially as a set of instruction given by Bhagavan in form of Shiva in those days to the rishis of Daruka forest. And it was in order for Bhagavan to give this, the person who was behind it was Muruganar, we have seen, because of his request to give the instructions when he reached that portion in his composition of Tirundiyar. He asked that, and Bhagavan graciously gave a set of 30 slokas. And as we have seen, Bhagavan just sat and wrote it all in just one go without even a break. He just finished the entire composing the entire 30 slokas. This is the power of the self doing it. See, if we do anything, even if we are thorough with some subject, if it is driven by mind, if we are going to give an answer, or if we are going to, let us say we have prepared very well and we're going to the examination, and some questions are put forth, still our spontaneity there will be a small break at least in our spontaneity, in the sense we'll have to think quite a bit. We'll have to think, recollect, bring it to the fore, and then formulate the answer and then present it. How many ever times we have read it. This is how mind functions. We all know that. But in case of Bhagavan, when Bhagavan was asked by Muruganar to give the advice, he just sat. He did not even know what happened. Completed, cut up. The reason was he was not working at the level of mind like all of us do. He is not trying to think, recollect, oh, what is this? What is that? What is the logical sequence? All that. It just came out. Because the mind he is working at an abstract layer. He is working at a layer which is behind the mind. He is working at a level where mind is not present at all. So it's all completely spontaneous. This is how Atma, again, we are only saying this is how Atma functions because Atma cannot function in that sense. So it's only because we have the Dvaita Bhavam, and so this is how things will go. So in case of Bhagavan, it was not like this at all. It was spontaneous because it flowed forth from Sachitananda, and Sachitananda, there is no thinking, and Bhagavan was able to finish it all from our point of view in one sitting. So this is how the entire Upadesa Saram, Upadesa Undiyar initially, and then translation into Upadesa Saram came forth. So we don't need to really, we cannot comprehend as to how all this came about beyond what I said now, because it is beyond our mind's capability to understand the nature of a Jivan Mukta Purusha. It can never reach there because mind is always used to working at one layer, and you have to work in a layer where mind is not there. How can the mind do that? Mind does not even know what is no mind. The land of no mind is not comprehended by mind because it is because of lack of familiarity. It does not know. So this is how Upadesa Saram came about, and Bhagavan started initially with by explaining the nature of karma, because he had to take a very methodic route. He had to it was given in a methodic way, because the raw nature of these rishis initially, who were only exposed to doing karma, Vaidika karma, had to be first. They had to settle down well in that marga itself. Even with that marga, their understanding was wrong. which came to fore very clearly, because that is the only reason why their karma did not produce them result when they tried to uh, fight with Lord Shiva. He, but they were surprised, and when they put the question, we were very surprised, because so far our karma has never let us down. It will always yield us the desired result, and all the karma we are doing, our Vaitika karmas, are of the highest standard, and we are doing it very rigorously. And if it did not produce result, which means we don't know what's happening, they were humble enough to ask the Lord. The Lord now understood. First of all, he had to tell them that they are doing karma fine, but where is the flaw, nature of flaw in the karma that they are doing? It had to be highlighted initially. So but the Lord starts and he says, karma is fine, but karma on itself is insentient. It is jata. It cannot give the fruits on its own account. There has to be an ordainer, a Lord, a God, and a higher being who is going to give the initiate and give the karma phala. That is victory or defeat or whatever. All the karma phalas are ultimately given by the Lord. This Lord is what we call as Maheshwara, Mahavishnu, whatever, in whatever form each one is comfortable with, we all call. So, again, this Lord, this God that we are talking about, is also under the influence of Maya. It's only because of this Maya that this God itself came about from Parabrahma. We also come out from the same Parabrahma, and we also will be the Lord only. But Lord has this Upadhi or adjunct called Shuddha Maya. That is a God. That is a God we have conceived, the God, the so-called conceived God, the Parampurul, the Paramapurusha, and all that, the Mahavishnu, Govinda, whatever, Krishna, whatever, all this came about, and their expansion or everything stopped for them at the point of Shuddha Maya. We underwent initially the stage of Shuddha Maya, from there further issued forth and formed this entity called Upadhi, called Avidya, which is ignorance. The God that we worship to does not have ignorance at all. Whereas we are totally driven by ignorance. So we have slipped away further from the pure Godhead. We were all Godhood. We on the way. Everything starts in the same way. There is Sachit Ananda. That is the Shuddha Brahman, which has undergone no change at all. But that Shuddha Brahman has a built-in power called Maya, which is an inherent power within itself. This Maya is something we cannot meaningfully or satisfactorily give any explanation, because that is the nature of Maya. It is, yes, it is not. It is and it is not at the same time. So, what explanation can anyone give about such an entity which is and is not at the same time? Sometime it is, sometime it is not, means we can give quite a bit of explanation. But it is and is not at the same time. So, we cannot talk about it. That is why people say, the learned one says, never ever try to understand or explain what is Maya, because that is Maya. It is inexplicable, it is Anirvachaniya Tattvam, which resides in the Shuddha Brahman. And when Shuddha Brahman, from the Shuddha Brahman, this Maya comes out, agitates or comes out. How? As we said, somehow comes out. What happens? The other tattvas gets formed. That is the Shuddha, all the, and Maya is always laden with three entities called, three gunas called Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna. So, out of this pure Sattva, what an entity gets formed, which is called the Ishvara. That is the Ishvara Tattvam. So, that is what we pray, go to temples and pray. We go all that, because that is where, that is when the Saguna worship begins. The Ishvara with Guna is called Saguna. And once we transcend that level, we go into the level called Nirguna. But unfortunately, our mind is so grossified at this time, and we are in no we are not capable of doing any nirguna upasana at this point in time. Even if we try, it will be miserable failure because the mind is not capable of working in that plane yet. We are trying our best to put some, and Bhagavan, people like Bhagavan have given excellent hints as to how to quickly transcend Saguna and go to Nirguna. But the intermittent stage of Saguna worship is inevitable. We have to do that. People like Muruganar has many times said, it will be folly not to worship an image. He says, please, by all means, don't bother about what other people say about idol worship. It is must, he says. It is mandatory. You have to start there. Unless you start with there and get a firm grip over that form of worship, you cannot go into the next step of worship. You cannot suddenly sit back and say and look at open space and say, I'm seeing God and all that. These will all be prattles. We'll only be fooling ourselves by imagining all things unwanted. So, this Sutta Shattva laden Maya is called Ishvara. From after that Ishvarahood, lot of other things come upon. How this is how in Krama, how Jivas come about. So if it stops there at that level, it is called Ishvara. But if it undergoes further parinama and becomes a Jiva by means of gaining so many other upadhis, the first among them is the upadhi called the ahankara, the I. So once it comes, the ahankara rises up, it loses the Ishvara status, and now it is a Jiva, a fully declared Jiva. And from this ahankara, other things comes out, mind comes out. From this mind, body comes out. From this body, the world comes out. And that is no way. We have gone to a totally into an opposite, into a totally unwanted direction, which is purely imaginary. This is how classical Vedanta, this is how they teach the krama, Srishti krama. This is called Adhyaropa Apavada method of teaching. The classical Upanishads, lot of them use this approach because they find it very, very useful in order for you to understand. Unless, see, suddenly we are all used to so many things in the world. Suddenly, if somebody comes and says, no, what you're seeing is imaginary, it's going to be meaningless for us. We are not going to be able to accept, I'm seeing something. For heaven's sake, tell me what I'm seeing. Don't just, fool it away by saying it is Maya and it has got no existence. So you ignore it. I'll say, I'm feeling hungry. How can I ignore that hunger? Is it possible? Is this something meaningful at all? I have a debt tomorrow morning. Somebody is going to come and ask me for a repayment, and I cannot say it is Maya, and I cannot sit quiet because the consequences has to be faced because we are still in that realm. So this is where quite a lot of this Western Advaita teachers have missed the point. Quite a lot of them, even today, especially today, it's blooming. The entire it's become an industry, and the industry is blooming. They all meet together every week, faithfully have something known as satsang and all that, exchange pleasantries and all that, and sit back and say everything is Maya. Don't worry. It is not going to be of any use to anyone. And at the end of the 1 hour stipulated time, they all walk out, exchange numbers and all that, fix up a time for the next meet and come. Same thing repeats. No progress. It cannot give any progress because this is Maya is way too powerful to just like that ignore and walk out. Because we are thoroughly under the clutch of the original Maya, and that Maya, the Shuddha Maya, cannot do anything on Ishvara because even though the Ishvara is produced by that Maya is controlled by that Ishvara. Whereas after that, when it undergoes furthermore parinamas in form of avidya, there is no end to it, and we are totally under the clutches of Maya, and we cannot say there is no Maya. There is no Maya, I'll go and touch the fire. Can anybody do? Is it meaningful? Whereas this neo-Advaitins, so-called neo-Advaitins, have been foolishly treading that path, which is not correct. So Vedanta teachers understood That this is not how I can go and tell my Shishya that I cannot tell him it is Maya, ignore. He is full of avidya. How am I going to help him? So he starts from all the krama. He teaches a krama srishti. First there is Ishvara. From first there is Shuddha Brahman. Then with the help of Maya, Ishvara comes in. And then so many other tattvas coming. There are 30, 36 tattvas are there. They classify. We don't need to necessarily go and learn all the tattvas. But because of all that Akasha came in, Vayu came in, Agni came in, all that, these are all apachikirana bhutas. They are not yet become grossified. They are all subtle bhutas. They are all manovritti in form of waves. They are residing initially. And when these waves, mental waves, based on certain combination, when they intermingle, they form and they grossify. And that is how the Stula Bhutas came about. The Stula Panchabhutas. Sukshma Panchabhutas are there initially, and because of certain formulas are there given elaborately, certain admixtures of certain bhutas with other, we get the gross bhutas. That is the after Panchikaranam, a process called Panchikaranam takes place. And the gross universe is formed. This is how universe came about according to Shastras, according to Vedic Shastra. So then everything is there. We are able to see, we are able to participate, and we ourselves, our body is part of that world that is projected from the mind. Again, there are two different kind of approaches that Vedanta might take. Some teachers will say there is a cosmic mind. From that cosmic mind, these issues forth. But Bhagavan has never accepted something like a cosmic mind. There is an individual mind, and from that individual mind, the world is getting projected. This is all Bhagavan will say, because he simplified the whole process by not complicating the Hiranya Garbha Tattva here. Classical Vedanta, yes, will talk about cosmic mind. We'll talk about the Hiranya Garbha, that is a golden egg from where every creation came about and all that. And Vishnu is that Hiranya Garbha. From there only the entire creation comes about, and all that will be talked about in classical teachings. Bhagavan, for our sake, he feels it is not needed for us to get too much of knowledge that is of not direct benefit to us. So to the extent needed, you need to know about Srishti. And Bhagavan, what he did, he sort of put an end to this concept of Krama Srishti. Krama Srishti means slowly teaching step by step. From this came, this came. So there is a cause and relation, cause and effect relation that is getting established. Bhagavan says, no, stop it. Let that be aside. But the most beneficial understanding of teaching of creation is what is known as Drishti Srishti creation. That is, where there is Drishti, there is Srishti. There is nothing called, don't imagine that there is a Ishvara sitting there and initially he created all this. This is how all the dual school take place, including Christianity. They say the God came and in 7 days he created earth, 7 days he created hell and earth and all that heaven, everything they will say. Same is the case with Islam and all other dual-oriented, dualistic. I mean, they call this monotheistic religion. They say there is only one God, but they completely meander under the concept of dualism, because for them there is them and there is God, so it becomes dualism. They say there is only one God, and so they think that is the highest form of worship. That is monotheism. That's all. That is not Advaitam. That is not non-duality. Non-duality is establishing unity or being in that unity and understanding only unity. That is non-duality. So Bhagavan said, Yukpat Srishti is what Bhagavan taught to us. That is simultaneous creation. You see something and that is there. When you don't see something, that is not there. This understanding will go a long way for you to very quickly understand the nature of things out there. We are trying to understand in here, but at the same time, when the in here is not participating, the out there, that is the universe out there, it's not there. Don't bother about it. It's not there. You are creating it only on the go. And there are plenty of analogy for it. The dream. that we have every day, that we undergo every day, is nothing but this type of Yupat Srishti. We go to sleep, the body drops off, there is a mind is there, the mind conjures up everything, it creates its own world, and everything is there till the end of the dream. And the entire Vyavahara of the dream goes exactly like the Vyavahara that we do in our waking state. This is exactly how dream is. Everybody can easily intuit the process of dream. Just you can, with simple imagination, we can come to the conclusion that this is how dream works. I slept off, I was thinking, imagination, and after waking up, nobody says, nobody attaches any importance to that dream because it's over. And it is happening in a totally different realm. The realm of dream and the realm of waking state, Jagrat, will never cross. Each one stops at their own limit. So it's absolutely foolish to try to interpret dreams and try to make betterment to your life today. Like so many people in astrology, so many other in other field of in other walk of life. So many people are doing that. They are trying to interpret the dream and try to give a solution to the Jagrat life. Absolutely not going to work at all. It is very clear. So let them do it for their own sake of convenience, or there are some people who are very happy to listen to that and they feel that they are deriving benefit from it. But it is for such people, let them do it. But here, people who have come to Vedanta, especially under the guidance of people like Bhagavan, there's no need for all this. Because very clearly Bhagavan says, the Jagrat is also working just like how the dream is working. You are projecting everything, even in the Jagrat, just like how you project things in the dream, the world in the dream. The same way you are projecting the world with the help of this thing called mind in your current state also. So Bhagavan says, when there is no mind, there is no world. So Bhagavan immediately turns you back now, not with the help of saying everything you see is Maya. Bhagavan says, you are not seeing anything unless your mind works there, unless your consciousness is spread on that particular concept. You're not, that concept is not going to create a gross entity. So he says, as long as your mind is not getting into that direction, it is not there. This is known as Drishti Srishti Vada. And even when the mind sees something, and if it appears to come there, it is Vivarta. The argument he puts forth is known as Drishti Srishti Vada. That is, Drishti, sight, is what creates Srishti, creation. It what brings about creation. But even if there is a seeming creation, it is called Vivarta. This Vivarta means it is nothing but just the example we all have been very familiarized with so far. Just like how, because of wrong understanding, a snake appears on the road. This is all Vivarta is. To keep it as simple, Vivarta is nothing more than this. A false understanding under some ignorance, under the spell of ignorance, we are understanding the right thing as a wrong thing, or we are understanding an existing thing, a non-existing thing as an existing thing, or vice versa. So what happens in this case? We are seeing something. Even if the seeming appearance of the world is there, that world is called a Vivarta world. It is only a Vivarta, meaning it is only appearing to you. It is not seen. The first song of Ulladhu Narpadu, Bhagavan starts with a line called Nam Ulagam Kandalal, meaning because we see the world. He never said because the world is there, because the world exists. Right from the start, Bhagavan is giving Drishti Srishtivada and Vivarta Siddhanta through and through in the entire work, the Upanishad called Ulladhu Narpadu. So he starts with saying, because we see the world, never because the world exists. Because we see the world, what happens? So many, all the entire thing. Because we see the world, we have to postulate, because I'm seeing something, so my mind is curious to know where it came about. And we say it came from God, and all that. There has to be one completely powerful entity to create what I'm seeing is what its natural tendency will be. Otherwise, I'll have to explain how it came about, and I will be incapable of explaining anything beyond this. Science takes its own route of trying to explain, and religious people take their own route of explaining it by saying that it's all from the first Purusha, that is God, and all, Ishvara, and things like that. So, Bhagavan is very clear, even though he is conceding, he will appear to concede a little about creation in form of vivarta, imagined creation. He will not allow one of us, his devotees or his people who study his work, to really take all this for granted. That is why the Abhyaropapavada method is not very strongly advised by Bhagavan, even though if you have lot of people are there who are very strongly knowledge oriented people. They want to know. Unless their mind is satisfied, they won't cross the step. These are the so-called most brilliant students of today. Whereas you go to a very ordinary student and he hears the word of Bhagavan and he says, drop it, he'll drop it. He's not curious. That curiosity forces us to understand, no, you say this, I'm fine, but let me understand. So we'll go again and again, we'll go deep, thinking that it is the highest knowledge work. We are going into the highest, opposite side of knowledge. Because according to according to Bhagavan, even in the I think in the 26th song of Upadesa Saram also we'll see that ignorance and knowledge both are ignorance. Only this knowledge is not the Satchit knowledge. It is nothing but the knowledge of object, relative knowledge. The knowledge that is coming after the rising of ahankara or ego. That knowledge is what is known as ignorance. That is not called knowledge at all. So, when this ignorance or this ego itself is an imagined entity, every knowledge that we have is based on that imagined entity. How can there be knowledge? How can they not be ignorance? When the root on which, the basement on which it is constructed itself is false, how can this knowledge be true? No way. Like we see the rope, we see the snake. Now we take the snake to be real, and we study the snake, and we say the snake came and it will do this, it'll hit you, it's got so many poisonous tendencies, it has got so many species and all. We do huge amount of research on the snake. Can any one of them be true? Because we are talking about a rope, only imagining a snake on the rope. This is exactly how all the tattva araichi or the tattva experiments or knowledge that we gain and the science that we try to learn becomes like this only. On their own, they have no meaning because the base itself is false. So we think it is knowledge and we go totally in the wrong direction. We force our all our people to all our children, etc., the youngsters, to encourage them to really study, gain more degrees, gain more knowledge. You have to be knowledgeable. What is knowledgeable? We are talking about sheer ignorance here. We are talking about knowledge, ignorance in the guise of knowledge. That is all we are talking about. So Bhagavan is right from the start giving us a very clear, even if you see anything, it is only vivarta, you are seeing it only because of a false condition called avidya. He stops there. Now he says, how to get rid of this avidya? Focus on yourself. That is why he came about as this avatar and gave us this method of who am I investigation. Now he's made everything. You don't need to study all the Upanishads and go the entire route. It will start from Suddha Brahma, Parabrahma, and all that. It will go all the way to the earth, to the core of this planet called Earth. What is there inside and all that. And then at one point in time, it will result and come back. One says you don't need to do that. Only people like Bhagavan are in a position to give this. If this is given by, if the same teaching is given by some other guru, for example, I don't want to name anyone, I don't know. If this, I'm just saying X by an X, this firm establishment of the concept in our mind will not take place because whatever instruction is given, it is given with a strong coat of the grace of the Guru. called Ramana Bhagavan. Because the grace is there, we are able to now intuit and we are able to stop our researching nature. Stop there. Okay, now Bhagavan is clearly told. He says, don't foolishly say everything is Maya and then sit back and then enjoy every creation of Maya. You will say everything is Maya, but you need the entire, you are under the spell of Maya and you want everything. You will say this is a Maya, this is Maya, and tomorrow you will go, in order to come to the same satsang, you will go and buy the most luxurious car. And at that time, you don't know, what am I buying Maya? Is this any proper way of understanding? Is this any logical way of thinking? That is why Bhagavan says, don't be so foolish. That is not how it is. How it is you have to understand that there is no creation, and the creation comes about only when the sight falls on something, the consciousness of you, of your ego, of your ignorance falls on something. That is when something gets created. And even if it seems to get created, it is only vimarta. Are you able to appreciate the krama Bhagavan has given to us here? He is not pulling any carpet beneath your feet, but at the same time, he is giving the truth with a strong admixture of grace. Once we understand this much and sit calmly, many things will fall in place. Many problems will get erased. With this mind, if we study the teachings in Ulladhu Narpadu and Upadesa Undiyar, Upadesa Saram, we'll be able to follow very, very clearly from that point on. So, he first teaches about karma, he teaches about Nishkamya karma, he teaches about bhakti, he introduces the concept of bhakti, then he says, see everything that you see in form of a God, even if it is an imaginary vision, think everything is God, you are seeing only God. So your purity will increase, the purity of mind to sit in vichara will only increase because of that. And then he says, the highest form of bhakti is parabhakti tattvam, which means you and Arunachala, or you and whatever you are meditating upon, doing dhyana upon, are one and the same. They are not different. Internalize that, and you reach a state where you hit the ananya bhavam with the worshipper. The worshipper and worship gets thoroughly merged. This is the highest form of bhakti, the parabhakti tattvam. And then from the parabhakti tattvam, he moves on to say that if you stay put in the place of rising, without rising as the ego, that is, there is a point from where this ego rises up, keenly watch, and if you are able to stay back in the source without rising, that is known as bhakti, that is known as karma, that is known as jnana, that is known as Raja Yoga. All this yoga marga we are talking about is only to ensure that we do not rise forth as the limited ego. And then he goes on to say a little about Raja Yoga Marga, where he says that we have this breath control, all this is there, all the there are some people who will teach it very elaborately about this Kundalini Yoga, where the rise of Kundalini and all that they'll observe, it will go from some point to the top of the head, which is Sahasrara, and then it dips forth and fall as a honey drop in the heart and all that. There's a big school of learning. That is the yoga school, Raja Yoga Marga. So people who are interested can take that marga, but ultimately, with the help of the breath control, you have to still your mind, obtain the manolaya status, and then be vigilant enough to watch that status of manolaya and make the mano nasha. So one yogi was this way, completely destroyed his mind. He has got nothing more to lose. Do anything. He has done his krita kritya. He is done. He is finished doing everything. There is nothing more for him to do. So he uses all these techniques to teach, to bring you to the stage of that yogi who has reached that state and say, in order to come that, now Bhagavan will open the best possible marga for people like us to follow from the sloka 16th onwards, where he says, what did he say in 16th sloka? Says, first of all, stay put in the place where you are rising from. Don't see anything. Don't leave of externalities. Completely give up seeing all the objects of the world. That is What does it mean, seeing object of the world? Take your attention away from them. Bring your attention away from them. I'm not trying to say, with the help of the eyes, I'm seeing a computer in front of me, and I'm not foolish enough to say it is not there. But I'm not going to be thinking about that computer. So even if my eyes, the physical eye, perceives the object there, the mind, since it is somewhere else, it will not process what I am seeing. This is all that is known as withdrawing your attention from the object. If at all you are seeing something, there are some state when even when a fire hits you, your mind is totally engrossed in something. You won't even feel the pain of the heat, the disturbance, the heat caused on your skin. Even the because that feeling stops at the tactile sensation, and your mind is fully occupied with something else, which is more important. It does not have time enough to come to this sensation and observe what the sensation is. There are situations, or we are, all of us know that we sometimes we may be hearing a blurring noise or a horn behind us, but we won't notice it. And that guy will be yelling again and again at us, saying that, don't you hear? I've been honking so badly. But our mind was preoccupied with something, so it is not processing the data. This is inattention. So voluntarily bring about that inattention towards objects of the world is what is said initially. And once you do that, don't stop there. Move all the attention towards the feeling of I, towards yourself, towards the light of yourself. So leave out externalities and focus on yourselves. This is what is known as the vichara that we are talking about. So once you do that, the one darshan that you start getting, the chitta darshanam itself becomes tattva darshanam. Drishyavaritam chittamatmanah chitta darshanam tattva darshanam. So leave out external, and when you focus on yourself, that darshanam that you get at that time with complete inattention to external objects and complete attention to yourself, you obtain one darshanam within, and that darshanam is known as tattva darshanam. That is reality you are seeing. So Bhagavan starts off the first sloka in this marga by saying this, by introducing this one of the most beautiful methods or important knowledge that we need to bear in mind, important data that we have in mind in order to proceed to acquisiting vichara and understand the nature of vichara further. So in the next song, he says, Manasam to Kim, what is mind? If you sit back and inquire, what exactly is mind? It will be found that there is nothing called mind. And this is the direct path of realization. So here, after giving a first step is important, that vairagya towards the object of the world is very important. Again, be very, very clear. Ignoring the object means not giving attention, paying enough attention to the object in such a way that object captures the imagination of the mind. Don't be too attentive to something that you see. Just be the eye see. If at all something comes in its way, the eye will process the data from a point of view of physical eye. The retina will up to until the till the level of retina it will come, but beyond that the data has to be passed to the entity called mind. But that mind is, you are not allowing the mind to process the data, and because of that it stops there and it perishes. This is what is known as ignorance of the objects of the world. You cannot expect some object in front of the eye to disappear totally. That is not at all what we are talking about. We are talking about being indifferent to that object. It can be any object. It's not just our common example that mostly we take is the example of eye. Whatever eye sees, whatever ear tastes, hears, whatever the tongue tastes, whatever the nose smells, whatever the skin feels, all of them have the same meaning only. Each one can ignore the object in this way by not paying attention, by not developing a taste in that object, and not passing the data to the mind, by making the mind turn inwards, and this all the sensation will be eliminated at the level of the doorway. It will come, knock the door, and it will go off. So if we sit back now with that kind of a vairagya of not attending to external object and focus on our own feeling, and try to find out what is this mind, we'll easily come to the conclusion that there's nothing called mind. No, mind is non-existent will be the answer. So, manasam tu kim margane krite na aiva manasam marga arjavat is the 17th song Bhagavan said. And in the 18th song, he goes on to say, okay, even by force of habit, even though I am able to see that there is nothing gross entity called mind or a subtle entity called mind, whatever. I mean, there is nothing, no entity called mind. I'm able to intuit that much, but still thoughts are coming to me. So if you try to understand what these thoughts are, so thoughts alone constitute the mind, we'll come to the conclusion. So far, I was thinking that there was something called mind, and now I'm able to understand there is no mind. And even by force of habit, if I'm thinking that yeah, no, there's something called mind, even if the habit forces me to say that there is something called mind, what I'm going to say, I'm going to say they are nothing. Mind is nothing other than thought. Thoughts are mind. What, oh, let us say a bundle of thought, a bunch of thought comes at some point in time. You collectively analyze the thought. That is nothing but mind. But in reality, they don't exist because in the previous song itself, by means of analysis, we are able to eliminate the entity called mind. Now, these thoughts only, even if we believe that there's something called mind, it is only but a bundle or multitude of thoughts. So, this is the nature of thoughts. Thoughts, when they germinate, they bundle together and we call them as mind. This is the nature of mind. Sorry. So, thoughts alone constitute the mind, and they are all dependent on the I thought. This is the most important point driven in this 18th sloka. Yes, thoughts come to me. But the first ever thought that can come to anyone is the thought called I. I, the personalized thought will come in. And hence, this I thought itself constitutes the mind. So even if we have to somehow say that there is something called mind, it is nothing but the I thought, because all the other thought that we have is having this I thought as the foundation. Everything, everything is built on top of the I thought. So this is what the I thought, the first thought that comes to us is what is known as mind. That itself can be understood as mind. There's nothing else which is mind, because every other thought is based from this I thought, the first thought I, also known as I am the body. The mind, as we have seen on occasions before, is like a phantom. It cannot function without the help of a gross body. It needs a gross structure for its survival. Without that gross entity, it cannot on its own hang in balance, hang on its own. It's not capable of. So it catches hold of a body. That is why in sleep, body goes, mind goes. In deep sleep. At that stage, there's nothing. In dream, this body drops off, the mind cannot function without a body, so it creates its own body. With the help of that created, imagined body, it functions. As we saw, that created, that body is imagined like this body we have right now in this Jagrat is nothing but imagination. So, mind needs a gross entity to hold on to survive. So here in this case, the I thought is nothing but mind. It needs an entity called body. It takes the body and it survives and it starts creating, projecting the entire world, entire universe that we know of. Everything comes from manovritti, from the waves that is in the mind. And even science today is able to say that, but they don't understand the manovritti part. They know everything is coming from some wave. That wave is hitting upon something and collapsing and causing the universe and all that. But they do not know the nature of waves. Our rishis, years before, have clearly declared these are starting point of this wave that you are talking about today is nothing but a mental wave. And this is how the Drishti works that Bhagavan teaches us. This is what science is also trying to teach us today. without understanding the other side of the equation of the manovritti. So here, manovritti takes place first. That is, the I thought is established, and then in order for it to survive, it creates all the gross body, the gross physical universe gets created. So, if you trace back, science is willing to only experiment the out there, whatever is there in front of me, and it conveniently or foolishly negates the experimenter. I who consider who is doing the experiment, am after all a part of the part and parcel of the same world. So how can I stand alone and do experiments, excluding me? So because I play a vital role too. So how is the equation going to get established? This is where science is going astray. This is where Vedanta has been crowing for ages, saying that don't do that. You have to be an integral part of your own experiment, otherwise it won't succeed. It has to be drishti srishti. It's getting established. See how beautifully it is getting established here. Without drishti, there is no srishti. Like how famous scientists get very thoroughly disappointed. They were so many of them were thoroughly disappointed, including the biggest scientific name of this century that we know of in form of Albert Einstein. Same thing happened. He was very disappointed that things are going this way. That is how we are saying, because he is not able to see concretely evidence everything. His science stops. Only at the end of his career, Einstein said, I made a very big mistake in my life of not studying Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. Scientists like Erwin Schrödinger, Niels Bohr have clearly declared, if I have a doubt, I immediately go to Upanishad. This is Niels Bohr. They say Niels Bohr and Erwin Schrödinger, they formally adapted Vedantic religion. So he says, whenever I have any doubt, I go to Upanishads. And it's a declared statement, recorded everywhere. It is nothing speculative, speculation made by people in India or whatever. No. All these people have declared. Oppenheimer, the inventor of the atomic bomb, the first atomic bomb and inventor of atomic science in a big way. He says, there is not one day that I will sleep without reading my Bhagavad Gita. He says, for me, every clarification will come only from Bhagavad Gita. Erwin Schrödinger say, the only equation that is worth understanding is Atma is nothing but Brahma. The Brahman, the Tattvamasi, that is there is nothing but the I that is here. He says, with this, I did all the experiments that I did. But unfortunately, I'm not able to prove anything on any front. But it is my strong feeling that what is right is Atman and Brahman are one and the same. Beyond that, there is nothing. I am personally, this is my opinion, this is my verdict. He is able to clearly give that. So the science has, despite giving so much of materialistic, explanation, ultimately relies only on the manovritti, because of the mind, the I thought, the germination of the I thought. And that I thought is what projects everything. If somebody knows a little bit of quantum physics, can easily follow the waveform actually goes and hits something in the presence of a conscious observer, which is Atman in this case. It collapses and it forms what is known as a particle. This is how the gross physical universe getting established. It is all in the mind, in potent form, and that mind wave, when it is illumined by consciousness, grossifies, Panchikaranam process takes place, and the gross universe is created. Particles are created. Science is not able to grasp it, digest it, because it can accept that such particles are coming up when it is in atomic level. But when you suddenly see a mountain, this is how mountain came about. But ultimately, it is the same scientist who says the mountain is nothing but bits and pieces of atoms. Science does not have the capability or the required apparatus to see how this waveform, rather than forming small particles, are directly forming mountains. This is how it. They're all acting simultaneously. Their actions are so fast that you and I cannot give an explanation at our current level of understanding. So see, Drishti Srishtivada is the most appropriate form of science, if at all if you have a scientific mind. If you have a totally religious mind, otherwise I want to be blindly believe that God came, God created the world in 7 days. He created hell in 7 days, earth in 7 days, and we human beings, they created this and all that, created flood and all that is there in Christianity. Likewise, even Hinduism, for that matter, has quite a lot of myths. He created in this way. Some Puranas may say something. All that is for Mandadikaris, for people who are not yet come to the fold of Bhagavan, for people like Bhagavan, for somebody who has taken a book of Vedanta in hand, who has started studying Upanishads. All this is not going to sort of appease him anymore. This Vada, that there was someone who created, immediately his mind will go, who is the someone, where is he? That someone in Vaikunta, where is Vaikunta? All this will keep on going. Is it a physical place in this earth? Or is it a physical place in this universe? If so, who created that physical place? Mind will come into that mode. It will gravitate towards the Vada called Drishti Srishti. So, this I thought that we are talking about has come about now. And this I thought is the foundation of all thought. So, this I thought itself is known as mind. So, that is the 18th sloka. It is clearly said. And in 19th sloka, he says, okay, now I am fairly comfortable with the concept that there is something called an I thought. What about that? Where did this I thought come from? So sit back and again go into introspection mode or inquiry. From where this I thought takes birth? Lo, that very I thought collapses. This is self-knowledge, self-inquiry. This is the process of self-inquiry. Aham ayam kuto bhavati chinvatam ayi patatti aham. Nija vicharana. When you sit back and see where this I thought is taking birth, how you do that, Bhagavan has written a small book called Who Am I, which is the most powerful weapon that we have. Sit back, even 16th sloka gives us the same clue. Sit back with the exclusion of every thought, by not paying attention to external object, withdraw your mind inward and focus on itself. That is a feeling called I. Then slowly it will drop off. And the, it will drop off and fall into Satchitananda. That will be coming in the next song. So, on inquiry, where this I thought comes, you see, you will feel sorry for yourself for not having known this, all this. You ridicule yourself saying that I, patat, I means as a term of exclamation, meaning, oh, lo, aye, in Tamil we say. Each language will have some equivalent. So, it says, patatti, that is, it falls. And this is what is known as the I thought itself vanishes. Just like how you see the snake appearing on the rope very cleanly. We don't know it is rope yet. So our thought is now filled with the form of snake only. But you keep on watching very seriously about the snake with the help of whatever, with the help of some light, with the help of words from people who are learned, who know about this snake, about this rope and all that. Then we see the snake. But our initial ability was only to see the form of snake, never the rope, even though it is rope. But our knowledge always thought it was snake. Similarly, our knowledge currently thinks of something called I, and it keenly follows the I, focuses on the I. And suddenly, just like how the snake became rope, the I, this I called as rising I, the thought called I, will become yourself, your own nature, the Sat, Chit. It will become that. So in the next song, he says, after doing this, if you ask, Ahaminashabad, Ahamaham, Ahamaham Tayat, Spurati Hrit Swayam, Paramapurna Sat. Ahami, that is aham means the individual I, the me, aham. Nashabhaji, Nashabhaji means having annihilated, having been destroyed, having killed. Nashabhaji, aham, 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 taya, taya. That is, as I. But at the point when the Nashabhaji has taken place, that is when the aham, the rise in the individual I, is getting annihilated, when it is getting destroyed, aham, a feeling called I, automatically flashes. Purati, it flashes on its own. A continuous feeling called I without any gap, which is popularly represented in the books as I dash I dash I dash I. It continues. So, by itself, it'll flash like this in heart. Shruti, this is heart itself. Heart we have seen in explanations before is nothing but Satchitananda is the heart. In the parlance here, the heart is not, we are not talking about the heart that is a fleshy organ. We are not talking about the right heart and the right side, which is the spiritual heart, which is given for the sake of certain level of devotees as the spiritual center. But the heart we are talking about is the original Satchitananda. So, by itself, when the individual I just annihilated through self-inquiry, through such inquiry that is talked about in the previous song, what happens? There shines forth the self. What is this self? How it shines forth? It shines forth as I, without interruption. A continuous surging feeling of I comes about, and this is the supreme infinite being. And the meaning of this I, what is this? This I. If you at that stage, if you want to know who you are, you can only say, I am I. You won't even say because you have killed the mind now. Only with the mind saying and all those activities come up. But you will know yourself that you are you. This is what is known as the self-effulgence of Atman. It does not need another light called mind to illumine for it to know anything. It always knows something, and what it always knows is itself. This is all it knows. It is always full of perfection, Purnam. It is everywhere. It is, and only it is. This is why it is called Advaitam. There is only one thing, and that is itself. And it knows itself. That is the Sat. There is this Sat called being, which knows its existence by the nature called Chit. So the Sat and the Chit are never different or one and the same. So here, this song, when this inquiry is made, the I becomes non-existent and it falls off. And it falls, and what is that? What happens when it falls off? A sudden surge of feeling called I flashes from the heart. That is it itself. It is itself Swayam Prabha. It knows its existence. You will come to that state because the mind is gone. And if you ask, where did this rising I fall off? On itself. Now, if you ask the question, where did this rising snake disappear suddenly? On the rope itself, because the rope was a substratum. It does not need any other, because it is only a false imagination. Only the ignorance is getting cleared, and the substratum is revealed to us very clearly. Similarly, the ignorance called this I thought is getting removed, and what is there always under the from on which this I thought is projected, called the original I, is always available. So there's no question of where it falls, rather, it falls on itself if at all you want to give a verbal explanation. It becomes itself, it transforms into itself. Not transform in the sense, not in any physical transformation. The ignorance drops. This is all you need to understand. So it becomes totally itself, and this is the true vichara, because this is where the infinite being is there. So in the next song, he says, this is the understanding about the term I. So if somebody asks, okay, now what is this I? This I is nothing. Idam aham pada. Idam aham pada bhikyamanvaham ahavilinake pyalaya satyaya. Idam aham. That is, idam means this. Aham pada, the word I, aham padatta, we say, the word I. What is this word I? Abhikyam, the view or the understanding. Anvaham. Anvaham is every day, day after day after day after day. Aham, ahami is the individual I. Lina kepi, even when subsided, alaya, without getting subsided, satya, as being. Now, because we have to give the individual words for the meaning for the individual word, we have to go in a fashion, in a way that it does not mean anything. Now, let's try to put it into understandable language. That is, this is the understanding about the term I. It is that which, even when the individual I or the ego is gone, that is, it drops off, unsubsided, the feeling continues. As pure being day after day. Through that, all the three states of consciousness, which is Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti, the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep. In all the three states, it keeps function. It is there. That I is there behind. So, if anybody asks, what is the nature or what is the true understanding of this term called I, it can be said that it is not, even after dropping of the ego I, which is what we are thinking all these days, all these years, all these janmas as I. No, even after I is annihilated, there is one pure I that is always shining forth. That is the real meaning of the term called I, nothing else. So this is how we need to understand the term I that is there. Idamaham pada bhikyamanvaham ahamilinake pyalaya satya. Even after elimination of that I, satya always prevails, and the satyam, the reality, is nothing but I. So this is the true meaning of the word I, even if that word I is used casually. Whenever we say I came, I go, we may, because of our ignorance, that I is body. I came, I jumped, I had a bad fall. I think it is all this individualized. I no. The ultimate meaning, ultimately, is only the real life, because that is the only truth that is existing, whether you know it or not. Just because you do not know, the truth cannot go away. Just because you think it is a snake, it cannot become a snake. It is always a rope. Whether you know or not, there is no change came about in the rope. Similarly, whether you know or not, you are foolish enough to think it is a individual entity due to avidya. It does not matter. How can the reality go otherwise? Reality is always real. So whenever we casually use the term I also, it can never mean anything other than the reality, the real I that we have. This is set forth in Psalm 21. So in so if you see the layout of this from Psalm 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, they are nothing but the technique of vichara is clearly established in these four songs, especially in one song, in the 18th song, if I'm right. The method, that is, sit back and if you sit back and watch where the eye rises from, it falls down with his head down. It bows his head down and it falls off. That is a word used in the Tamil Upadesa Saram. Naan thalai saayindidum, the eye will bend down and it will perish. So that is direct vichara. So these four slokas or five slokas, 16 to 20, constitute the practice of the teaching of Atma Vichara as expounded by Bhagavan. And the 21st song, he says, the meaning of I has been expounded. And in 22nd song, he says, the body, the mind, the prana, the intellect, and the ignorance are not the true I. The one and only being, which is not the true I, which is the one and only being, because they are surely insentient and unreal. So, in this song, Bhagavan talks a little bit about the concept of Panchakosha. He's never spoken about Panchakosha in any one of them, but here, because we are also familiar with Panchakosha, he gives a little meaning, a little explanation as to what this is. That is, here he says, Vigrahendriya Pranaditamaha Nahame Kasat Tadjadam Kataha. He says, Vigra Indriya, Vigraha, the body, Indriya are the organs, that is, mind, which is considered all the organs along with the body and the Indriyas. Prana, what is prana? Prana is the vital force. Dhi is the intellect. Tamaha, tamaha is a primal ignorance. Tamak, na, or not. Aham, not true I. All these are not true I. That is, all the indriyas, the body, the prana, the knowledge. That is, as we see, we have three koshas. The five koshas which are constituted in three different bodies. That is, the gross body is made of two entities called the physical body and prana. They are gross enough to observe. Physical body, we all know, yes, everybody knows the physical body. And prana also can be observed. It cannot be seen with this eye, but it can be observed because we see the inhaling and exhaling. We see the movement of the prana grossly. And then there is a subtle body which is made up of mind, buddhi, and ahankara. Mind, the thinking faculty, and the intellect faculty, that is a deciding faculty called intellect. And then we have the causal body, which is known as the causal body is nothing but your ignorance in deep sleep. It is called causal body is because at the state of deep sleep, everything goes into laya. We have seen there is no mind, nothing. And when the samskara rises up, it impels the mind to come into action. And when it is in that ignorance of the mind, it is full of anandam because it is in laya and mind is not there. And on a mode of merger with the reality that is its own self, the I, the Satchitanandam. And so Anandam prevails at that time. That is why it is called Anandamaya Kosa. And the body is called causal body because at the end of the sleep time, when the samskaras kindles you, you wake up and come back again. So the cause, it causes the other bodies to appear. So it becomes a causal body in nature. So in this sloka, it is said, the body, the mind, prana, intellect, and the ignorance are not the true I, which is the real one, because they are all insentient, they are all jata. We know that for sure. Without the intellect, without the light of chit of the original Satchit Ananda, none of them are going to function. All of them become totally jata. Our mind is jata because in absence of the light, it borrows the light only from the Sat and the Chit and its functioning. Everything is jata. Everything that has come out of that Satchit, original Satchit, that is your own reality, your own essential nature, anything that has sparked out, immediately it becomes jata. Immediately it is nothing but an insentient being, which is only false, obviously, because it is dependent on the first thought that is coming up, the so-called mind, when it is in association with the chit. There are two steps here. Bhagavan explains this in a sloka beautifully in Ulladu Narpadu, where he says, this body, this body is totally insentient. In whichever way you look at it, the body is insentient. It does not have the capability. It is just like a log. When the vital intellect is not there in the body, that is that when the ego, when the ahankara is not in the body, it is like a log. It is just drop. It is so it does not have the capability of claiming itself to be something, to be a sentient being or an I. Similarly, the pure I consciousness will never ever say that it is I, or will never ever rise up. It will always be itself, full of sentience. This body is full of insentience. This real I is fully it's a full sentient entity, but it won't claim any I. In between these two, something rises up and called the ego. In between the Jata body and the intelligent I, the original truth of ourselves, the Satyam, something of the measure of I rises up. The moment it rises up, it clings to the body, the Jata, and Adhyasa takes place at that level. And the body starts thinking it is not Jata anymore, it is got sentience, but this sentience is that sentience borrowed from the ego. And this ego, when it is associated with the intelligent part chit, it thinks it is sentient. When it is associated with the body, it takes the body's dharma on itself. It will think it is Jata. So this ego is what establishes a connection between sentience and insentient body. It just creates a knot. It is called popularly as chit. That is consciousness, Jata, body, Granthi. Granthi means not. This ego is nothing but chit, Jata, Granthi. So what we have to do is to untie this knot, come out of the shackles of this knot. Now this knot is tightening us, and we have to remove the knot. That is the process. That is what we are aiming to do with the help of all this Atma Vichara. Chit, Jata, Granthi is getting established. So, because this is how the mind functions, and we think that body is sentient at some time. We think this mind itself, we think the original chip itself, we don't know what it is, but we don't know. We are trying to, this dharma we are trying to put on the other one, others dharma we are trying to put here, and a complete adhyasa takes place. Understanding something as what it is not is adhyasa. So an adhyasa takes place at this stage. This is what is the first bhashya written by Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya before he starts his commentary on Brahma Sutra. Before Brahma Sutra bhashya, this is the first chapter he writes, which is the Adhyasa bhashya. He has to teach us that a very strong Adhyasa has taken place, a superimposition of a wrong preposition has taken place, and in order to remove that, we'll start the study of the knowledge of Brahman. The Brahma Sutra starts from there. And he writes his commentary. So, this is what in this 22nd sloka, it is very clearly said, because all these entities talked about the body, mind, prana, intellect, and ignorance, which are all the five sheets in the body. They are all Jata, and so they can never be the true, real self.